Let's look at what could well happen if there is a ground incursion. What would an operation like that look like?
Well, obviously, it would be a very painful operation for both sides. I mean, what you're talking about is a very heavily urbanized area. Gaza is a very heavily urbanized area. And the Israeli goal in such a move would be to basically drive Hamas out of the Gaza Strip, and that would also require them to destroy capabilities and their positions within Gaza as well, which basically means you're going sort of clearing street by street, dealing with intense close quarter fighting, as well as booby traps, the hostage situation. It will be a very messy operation, but it's the only way that you can actually clear territory and keep hold of territory and remove a terrorist threat like Hamas pose right now.
I mean, as you rightly point out, going sort of street to street, house to house to try and rescue hostages, Hamas have said that they are spread across the Gaza Strip, is going to be a bloody business. And of course, this is an enclave that's, populated, heavily populated. And of course, Hamas will have been preparing for any potential incursion for many years.
Yes, I mean, there's no doubt that part of Hamas's plans in any offensive is to try and draw the Israelis in to do this. And you're quite correct that they will be using civilians within Gaza to protect their positions, to hide batteries amongst civilian populations, to make the Israelis come at them in that way. But the unfortunate fact is that this is what urban close quarter combat will look like. There's no way getting around it. You either have to allow the terrorists to stay there, or you have to accept that there will be, unfortunately, civilian casualties because the place has to be cleared. And that's just the reality of what any army faces when it comes into such conflict.
Well, civilian casualties and also Israeli casualties as well, because there's no question that if they went in there, they would lose troops. I mean, I think you mentioned to my producer that it should be like when the PLO were cleared from Beirut in the 80s. Beirut became sort of a synonym for destruction. Is that what you are expecting could happen?
Well, yes, it's a very good analogy, because if you think about what happened in 1982, the goal of the Israeli operation was to remove the PLO from being able to operate in Lebanon, in Beirut. And they succeeded. It was a bloody mission, but they did succeed because, of course, Yasser Arafat and co. had to flee to Tunis. And that, of course, dramatically reduced their ability to cause terror for Israeli civilians. And we have to remember why this operation has been launched. It's been launched on the back of an incredibly murderous spree, barbaric spree, Israel's 9/11, Hamas terrorists coming over the border, murdering Israeli civilians. No democratic state can stand back, just as America didn't in 9/11, others haven't as well, and allow that to happen to its population. So the answer has to be to clear Gaza of the threat and then look to build up thereafter.
What do we know about the strength of Hamas as a fighting force?
Well, Hamas has obviously got troops to throw at these things. It's going to be using the advantage it will have as being the defender in an urban sort of situation to try and maximize the damage it will inflict on Israel in that way. In a sense, technology doesn't matter as much in this kind of conflict because you're fighting at such close quarters. It's going to be down to what you can see. But Hamas does have some advanced military capabilities, nowhere near, of course, the level that Israel will have. But the terrain and hostile population to Israel will work, of course, in Hamas's favor. But again, it's telling that despite these very, very sort of heavy odds in this regard, the Israelis still no doubt see it. There's no option but to go in to protect their civilians and do this.
Yeah, and of course, from the attack, we've seen some level of sophistication by Hamas. But I was thinking more, Dr. Mendoza, about the numbers. I was seeing reports upwards of sort of 20, 30,000 Hamas fighters. Is that the sort of numbers that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of fighters, yes, in that sort of capability. But again, you don't necessarily have to have the largest force in order to inflict damage on those coming in. However, the Israelis will of course, flood the space. They will make sure that they will win this battle come what may. Yes, they'll take casualties. But again, in a sense, it doesn't necessarily matter what the Hamas total is. The goal is clear. They have to be cleared from the territory. Those fighters and that leadership have to be gone, or else Israel will not have a successful operation.
And Dr. Mendoza, you will have seen the news that we brought right at the beginning of this hour about the incursion from Lebanon, a number of fighters killed. It's still unclear exactly what took place on that northern border of Israel. What's your assessment of the sort of regional dangers here and of this spilling into something broader?
Well, there's a huge regional danger because, of course, behind all of this activity is the malign hand of Iran. It's the Iranians who Hamas have already said supplied us and helped us with this operation. It's of course Iran that supplies and directs the operations of Hezbollah on the northern border. It's Iran who threaten with their missiles and nuclear activity from Iran itself. The reality is that Iran is probably attempting to get this into a regional conflagration that will bring in other countries, not simply Israel, but of course perhaps the Gulf Arab countries, the US and others, to sort of, if you like, have the war that ends all wars, to pursue the millenarian ideology. So the reality is there is a very dangerous moment. And right now what is happening is that a lot of threats are going into Hezbollah in particular, saying, don't you dare get involved. It'll be the destruction of you, from the Americans, this is, and we will also hold Iran responsible. So I think there's a diplomatic game going on behind the scenes, trying to stop this from getting beyond what it is right now into something much more dangerous.